From 2013 to 2024, the NRL's minor premiership was held by only 3 teams. In that period, the Sydney Roosters, Melbourne Storm, and Penrith Panthers picked up 3 JJ Giltinan Shields each. And as a fan of one of those 3 teams, I had a tremendous time. But for fans of literally anybody else, it really did feel like that ascent to the top of the NRL ladder was an impossible mountain to climb, culminating in a 2024 season in which those 3 sides literally finished first, second, and third. It was a bit baffling to try and rationalize how in a competition that has a salary cap, the Roosters, Storm, and Panthers were able to maintain that level of dominance for so long. But there were reasons why. There were certain advantages that those clubs had. For Penrith, it's because they have a junior base that is literally big enough to be formally recognized by the United Nations. But for the Roosters and the Storm, I'd argue it's because the salary cap has a bit of a false economy about it. Let me explain what I mean. Imagine you're a star player in the NRL and you have 2 contract offers on the table. One offer is worth $1 million per season and it's from a mid-sized team outside of Australia's major cities. The likes of the Cowboys, Knights, and Raiders fall into this category. The other offer is worth $800k per season from the Sydney Roosters or the Melbourne Storm. Yes, you'd have to take $200k less per season before tax, but you get to live in the heart of Sydney or Melbourne, you get to play with the game's biggest superstars, and you get to have a very, very good shot of winning a premiership. I know which one I'd be taking. What it means is that those teams are able to construct rosters full of star players because they can underpay relative to what other teams would and still attract the same players. And when those players at the club come off contract, they'll likely accept less than market value in order to stay there. This video is about the Raiders, so I'll give you an example that I think a lot of my younger viewers might not even know about. Back in 2014, the Green Machine formally announced the signing of none other than James Tedesco. In fact, the announcement can still be found on the club's website. But 8 days later, Tedesco pulled out of the deal in order to stay in Sydney, despite Canberra's offer being worth a reported $150,000 per season more than what he could get where he was. And we obviously all know where Teddy ended up. One of the greatest signings in Roosters history, and having scored the premiership winning try in the grand final against you-know-who, the Raiders. In his decade plus coaching the Raiders, Ricky Stuart has learned that unfortunately the young men of Australia don't quite see Canberra in the same light that he does. And as a young man of Australia who moved to Canberra, they are not wrong. The most interesting thing in this city is this statue of a magpie in the town centre. So Ricky devised a new plan, a risky play, but one that would pay off earlier than even he could have dreamed of. This is how the Canberra Raiders became the NRL's newest powerhouse. The Raiders' 2019 premiership charge was great to watch. Joey Leilua and Jordan Rapana developed one of the deadliest outside back pairings in the modern era. Jack Whiten was at the peak of his powers, and hooker Josh Hodgson was genuinely considered to be, on form, the #1 dummy half in the competition, ahead of prime Cameron Smith. But the age of that squad meant it was never really going to set them up for long-term success. Coming into the 2020 season, their players aged over 30 included Jared Croker, Elliot Whitehead, Dynamis Louis, Josh Hodgson, Jordan Rapana, and Asia Soliola. And while they did make a prelim final that season, it's not really a huge surprise to see that they missed the finals entirely in 2021. But it was in that 2021 season where the need for squad regeneration was properly identified. A shift in strategy that would prove to be an absolute flashpoint for the club. Here's what I mean. That 2021 Raiders squad included a 23-year-old Hudson Young, Corey Horsburgh, and Tom Starling, a 22-year-old Sebastian Chris, a 21-year-old Matt Timoko, and a 19-year-old Xavier Savage. Those 6 players, all now walk-up starters for the Raiders, averaged more than 12 games each that season. The blooding process had well and truly begun. Now that level of shift is not all too uncommon for a team in a rebuild. The key difference is that most of those rebuilding teams supplement that interior development with superstar signings on top of it. You think about the likes of Stephen Crichton at the Bulldogs or Jerome Luai at the Tigers. But Canberra just couldn't make that happen. A 4-year deal worth $1 million a season to David Fifita saw him pick the Titans instead. The Raiders knew that despite their large catchment area in the ACT and regional New South Wales, their junior base alone wasn't going to be enough to lean on, but they just couldn't get the key names through the door. What they did as a result of that though was genius. they flipped their biggest weakness into their selling point. They couldn't offer superstars the opportunity to play with other superstars, but they could offer some of the league's best young talents an opportunity to come to a club where their pathway to first grade isn't blocked by established elite players. The two prime examples of that are Kyo Weeks and Ethan Strange. Weeks was a fullback slash halfback at the Sea Eagles, but if there's two positions that you don't want to be in at Manly, it's the ones currently occupied by Daly Cherry Evans and Tom Trbojevic. Weeks managed 12 games across 2 seasons with the Sea Eagles, which isn't nothing, but most of those appearances did come off the bench. But the Raiders offered him a much clearer prospect of first team football. At halfback, his competition was Jamal Fogarty, and at fullback, his competition was Seb Chris, Xavier Savage, and Albert Hopewadi. And he knew that, saying,
"Yeah, 100%. I think I got a big opportunity in front of me, and so do the other boys. But yeah, there's a big opportunity and a big spot that needs to be filled, and I'm willing to work hard and do whatever it takes to put my best foot forward and hopefully see where that takes me."
And of course, as we know, it worked out brilliantly, with Weeks playing 17 games across multiple different positions in his first season at Canberra and absolutely locking down the fullback jersey this season. Aside from the final round in which they're resting players, Weeks didn't miss a single game in the regular season. 12 games across 2 seasons at Manly turned into 40 games across 2 seasons in Canberra. And at age 23, there's still a lot more to come. Then you've got Ethan Strange, a Central Coast junior in the Sydney Roosters system whose dad is the coach of the NRLW Roosters. In 2022, with veteran 5'8" Luke Keary coming towards the end of his career, Strange actually did have a clear path to first grade, with Sam Walker, his prospective halfback, and an opportunity to play in one of the NRL's best systems. But looking around him, he saw that he had the likes of Sandon Smith and Hugo Savala also competing for that jersey, with the likes as well of Drew Hutchison and Lachlan Lamb already in the first grade side having got reps in that shirt. So when Canberra came along and said, "Be our next Jack Whiten," it was an opportunity that he'd have been silly to turn down. And nowadays, at age 21, with 45 games already under his belt, is widely considered to be one of the league's top 3 wonder kids. In Kyo Weeks and Ethan Strange, the Raiders not only have 2 of the most high ability, high potential young players in the competition, but they have 2 guys who are bedded in at Canberra and who feel that they owe a debt to the club that took a chance on them when they were younger. That's reflected by Weeks earlier this season extending until the end of 2029 and Strange last season extending towards the end of 2028. They want to be in Canberra. They want to repay the Raiders. That is an extremely valuable thing for the club to have. While other clubs are spending up to $1 million each in those 2 positions, the Raiders have it covered for the foreseeable future. And looking to the rest of their spine, in just the same way they lured junior New South Wales halfback Ethan Sanders away from Parramatta despite being very, very highly regarded at the club, and snatched Owen Paddy from under the noses of the scouts up in Queensland. If they keep those 4 guys together, that's a spine that has the potential to be better than any currently existing spine in the NRL. And yes, I'm including Melbourne in that. And although that spine does seem very clearly planned, it wasn't even the case that the Raiders gambled everything on those 4 players. 20-year-old fullback Ricky Stuart, for instance, was signed from the Cronulla Sharks, and it now looks like he'll never really crack first grade at the Raiders. All Canberra did was gamble that 4 of those guys would work out, and it is one that has really paid off. Supplement that spine with, for example, 22-year-old Matty Nicholson from the Warrington Wolves, or 20-year-old Savelio Tamale from the Dragons, and all of a sudden one of the NRL's oldest rosters 5 seasons ago is now full of recruited kids who are desperate to be custodians of the green machine for the next decade. In 1995, on BBC's Match of the Day, former Liverpool defender Alan Hansen criticised Manchester United's squad management, saying,
"You can't win anything with kids."
And it became a famous saying not just in soccer, but across other sports as well. And though there are examples you can point to of that claim being disproven, I think any coach really in world sports would tell you that their ideal roster involves a combination of both youth and experience. This season, that's something that Ricky Stuart has been able to balance magnificently. Josh Papali'i, aged 33, is the old head in the group, the most capped raider of all time with 327 appearances for the club. Then you've got 31-year-old captain Joe Tarpany with over 200 Raiders appearances of his own, and also age 31, halfback Jamal Fogarty, a journeyman in his prime, who refined the art of being a stable halfback with 109 Queensland Cup appearances, and who has proven his ability to do that in every one of his 116 NRL appearances to date. Your 2 forward alphas and your halfback. I mean, quite literally the 3 positions that would naturally lead by default. It just so happened that Ricky Stuart's been able to concentrate his squad's experience in those 3 key spots. And sitting just below that, remember I talked to you about all the players that were blooded during the 2021 season? Well, today, Corey Horsburgh, Hudson Young, and Tom Starling are all 27-year-olds, each with over 100 Raiders caps to their name. The time investment, patience, and faith in those players has well and truly paid off. And all of those players will still be around in the NRL in 5 or 6 years' time. Those are the guys, as well as Ricky Stuart, who create an environment that allows these young players to arrive at the club and immediately thrive. And I think if I were a club like, say, the Knights or the Dragons, trying year after year to break out of this mediocrity, the Raiders' blueprint is one that I would really be looking to replicate. Only Craig Bellamy and Trent Robinson have had longer stints at their current club than Ricky Stuart, and both of them have won premierships multiple times during their tenures. Ricky, by contrast, hasn't won one since 2002. For reference, his only premiership as a coach was won 4 days before I was born. So I do want to give credit to the Raiders themselves as a club and organization for sticking by him and believing in his vision, extending him last season through to the end of 2029. I don't think there's a coach in this league who cares more about his club and his players than Ricky Stuart. You see it in every bloody press conference that he does. This man lives and breathes the Raiders. To co-opt the club's social media slogan, he bleeds green. In fact, I think there's only one figure in this city who's more iconically Canberra. Big Swoop, would you ever be interested in coaching the Canberra Raiders?
No. No, I don't think I will.
I don't know if the Canberra Raiders will win this year's premiership. September is always a new season, and one in which finals experience does really count. And for all of its plus points, that is an area in which this Raiders squad is lacking. But these boys have defied everything that I thought was possible from them up until this point. And with them having secured the minor premiership, I'm not about to start doubting them now. This is a roster and a club that is set up to be at the very top for a very long time. Whether they actually do it or not is another matter. I mean, that's a matter of execution, but they're doing all the right things to lay that groundwork and massively overachieving on field while they're at it. I've said for many years that I think the Raiders would be a really fun team to support in that they're a team that's easy to be proud of. They consistently seem to do better than they have any real right to. But right now, this team of young hotshots isn't interested in being told what they do and don't have the right to do in this premiership. They'll write their own destiny, and really, the rest of us might not have much more option than to just sit and watch and appreciate what they're able to do. I really can't wait to see what the future holds for the Raiders, and I do think that they're about to rewrite what has defined the NRL for a decade. How far do you think the Raiders will go this season? Let me know in the comments. And if you did enjoy this more video essay style content, let me know with a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.